This part of Roswell, Georgia is easy to walk around and it's close to downtown, so it's no problem to walk to the restaurants or to the bars. This part of Roswell, however, has nothing in walking distance. So if you want to be in an area that's easily walkable, you'll want to be within a mile of downtown Roswell. For the most part, Roswell is a suburban area, with lots of neighborhoods and then like shopping areas here and there throughout the city. And I think for the most part, the southern part of Roswell is where you'll find like the most amount of character and charm in the homes. And I know that's kind of subjective, but as someone who lives about 10 minutes away from Roswell and who regularly works in the Roswell area, I'm pretty confident that that southern part of Roswell, like south of downtown Roswell, that's where the homes have the most amount of character. And then something else you should know is that Roswell is in Fulton County. And Fulton County is like the most important county. It's like the biggest county in all of Georgia because that's where Atlanta is. Atlanta is just one of the cities in Fulton County. Also, there's Roswell, Alpharetta, Milton, Johns Creek, also Union City, East Point, College Park. And so the thing is that Roswell is very different from Atlanta, even though they're in the same county. Obviously, in Atlanta, you're going to find that more urban feel. You're going to be able to live, 5 minutes or, even less than that to a grocery store. You just come down to the bottom floor of the condo, you walk across the street to the grocery store in Atlanta. That's how it is there. But Roswell is very different. In Roswell, you might have to drive 10 to 15 minutes to a grocery store or 10 to 15 minutes to the school to drop off the kids. It's a very different feel, even though they're only about 15-20 minutes apart from each other. One of the main roads that goes through Roswell is Highway 9. Not only does it go through downtown Roswell, but it goes north and south throughout almost the whole city. And this is the main way, or at least one of the main ways that you would get to Atlanta from Roswell. Like if you worked in Atlanta and lived in Roswell, this is a really commonly used route to get to Atlanta. Another one is Highway 400. Both of these go north and south through the city and are parallel to each other. So if you're traveling on one of these roads, you really want to plug it into the GPS and see which one has less traffic, because Roswell is certainly one of the suburbs that has lots of traffic. And then while the southern part of Roswell has homes with more character, more charm, the northern part of Roswell, I think, has homes that are a bit newer. These are homes that are a bit more modern, and it's also closer to Alpharetta, which is one of the most popular suburbs. So the northern part and the southern part of Roswell is very different. Another major difference in these two parts of Roswell is that the southern part is where you'll find the Chattahoochee River. And this is one of the biggest draws to many of the people who come to live in Roswell. The Chattahoochee River provides a lot of outdoor activities, swimming, fishing, boating there in the river. And then also on Azalea Drive is a like walking and jogging trail that goes along the river that's absolutely beautiful. There are a bunch of parks and playgrounds there on Azalea Drive in Roswell, right along the Chattahoochee River. So this is certainly one of the hallmarks of the southern part of Roswell. And then the northern part of Roswell is going to have more commercial areas, more shopping. This is where the intersection of Holcomb Bridge Road is and Highway 9. Right around there, there's a bunch of shopping centers and restaurants. And so there's certainly more modern homes on the north side, more commercial areas on the north side, and the southern part of Roswell is a more quiet area, much more outdoor activities there. So these two parts of Roswell are very different. In general, the vibe of Roswell is very similar to some of the other suburbs of Metro Atlanta. So lots of young families there, lots of neighborhoods with HOAs and pools and tennis courts. This is all super common in Roswell. But unfortunately, there are some bad sides to living in Roswell. There really are some things about Roswell that are deal breakers for many people who are considering moving there. So let's go over 5 red flags that you really need to know about before moving to Roswell. The first one is that the age of the homes in this city is kind of a big detractor for many people who are thinking about moving here. While you can find a lot more character and a lot more charm in the homes on the south side, this also means that you're going to see more age in the homes. And this goes for the homes on the north side of Roswell as well. There's not a whole lot of new construction in Roswell. It's kind of an older city that has been developed decades ago, so there's not really a whole lot of room here for new homes. A lot of the homes here were built in the 70s and 80s and sometimes in the 90s as well. And what that means is that you're gonna oftentimes find homes that need more maintenance. And as I've said many times on this channel before, doing renovations on homes here in Georgia is not as common here as it is in other states. And part of that has to do with the fact that home values are so much lower here. So putting $5,000 to $10,000 in new flooring is not super common because you don't get that return on investment. Or putting $20,000 to $30,000 into a new kitchen, people don't do that very often because they're not going to get that return on investment because the home values are so much lower here than other major cities. So with older homes often comes more maintenance. And then another red flag that you definitely need to know about is that the pricing of the homes in Roswell, in my opinion, doesn't quite make sense. Like, if you are thinking about moving to Roswell because there is something there that you absolutely need to be close to, like if there's a job in Roswell and you want to be 5 to 10 minutes from Roswell, then absolutely, Roswell is a great neighborhood. Or, if you have family in Roswell and you want to be super close to them, then great. Totally makes sense to be in Roswell. But in my opinion, if there's not something that you absolutely need to be in Roswell for, then I'm not quite sure that it makes sense to move to Roswell because of the prices of the homes. Let me show you. This is a $600,000 house in Roswell, and this is a $600,000 house in Woodstock. This is a $700,000 house in Roswell, and this is a $700,000 house in Cumming. So right away, you can see that not only can you get more home for your money in other suburbs, but there's also homes that are newer in other suburbs for the same price. And then another red flag that you should know about before moving here is the amount of traffic. Again, Highway 9 and Highway 400 are super helpful for going north and south through the city, but during rush hour, these roads are jam-packed and it sucks to be on these roads during rush hour. The amount of traffic that you find in Roswell is really kind of a pain in the ass. And one of the reasons for that is because there are so many populated cities north of Roswell. Cumming, Alpharetta, Johns Creek, Milton, all of the people who live in these cities that are north of here who work in Atlanta drive through Roswell to get to Atlanta. So this means that you are competing not only with the residents of Roswell when it comes to traffic, you're also competing with all of the residents of the suburbs north of Roswell. Same thing for coming back to the suburbs in the evening time. So if you're living in Roswell and you're working in Atlanta, this is really something that you need to think about. And the fourth red flag that you should know about is that the schools in Roswell are okay, but they're not great. It's not like neighboring city Alpharetta or East Cobb or Johns Creek. In these neighboring suburbs, the public schools are much better, whereas in Roswell, in my opinion, the public schools are just a little lower in quality. They're not terrible. I'm not saying they're like the public schools in the middle of Atlanta. I'm just saying that they are not quite as good as some of the other neighboring suburbs, which brings me to the fifth red flag that you should know about is that there's really not a lot of young families in Roswell. There are a few. As you can imagine, many young families prioritize the school qualities. So when they see that the other cities have higher school ratings, they don't tend to move to Roswell as much. Again, if there's something that you need to be in Roswell for, then it really is a good option. But if you don't need to be in Roswell, you can find other suburbs that are better. And for this reason, there are not a whole lot of young families in Roswell. In my opinion, I think there is a bit more old money in Roswell, similar to like Sandy Springs. It's really the cities that border Atlanta very closely. Vinings, Norcross, Sandy Springs, Roswell is kind of similar. There tends to be more old money in these cities because they are so close to Atlanta. But the city isn't all bad. There are certainly a lot of benefits to living in this city. So let's talk about the biggest benefit of living in Roswell, and that's the downtown area. This is really like where you're going to find some of the best restaurants and the best shops. And they have a couple sidewalks that go right through the downtown area, which really makes it a great place to hang out and spend time. And it's regularly full of people on evenings and weekends. And downtown Roswell has this kind of charm and this kind of history to it that you just don't find in many of the other suburbs of Metro Atlanta. One of my favorite stores or shops there in the downtown area is Roswell Provisions. When you walk into this shop, this like coffee and pastry shop, right away you can see the history that you can find in those old buildings. The flooring there in Roswell Provisions is probably like 100 years old. I think a lot of the things in Roswell Provisions are like 100 years old, but they have some of the best coffee and the best pastries there in this shop. So while Roswell does have some red flags, if you could live just a couple minutes or walking distance from downtown Roswell, that would be a huge plus that you really can't get in some of the other suburbs of Metro Atlanta. Another great part about Roswell is the neighborhoods there and the HOAs and the pools that you would find in Roswell. In fact, I made a whole video about the neighborhoods and we went on a tour of the neighborhoods of Roswell. If you want to check out that video, you can click on this link right here. I'll see you there.